This week's Torah portion explores the story, I guess the highlight, the low light, depends on your perspective, of the golden calf, where Moses is up on the mountain receiving the tablets of the Ten Commandments, and Aaron and the people decide to go astray and worship something else. Now, this story is seen as a poster boy example of idolatry, worshiping idols, one of the Ten Commandments' most vehement prohibitions. But what is idolatry? What is the sin in idolatry? After all, we worship things all the time. Sports heroes, right? We talk about idols, matinee idols, music idols, American Idol. Well, what is idolatry? According to Rabbinic Judaism, in many ways, it's encapsulated in a story about Abraham that doesn't appear in the Bible. It's in rabbinic imagination. Abraham's father, Terach, according to the story, was an idol maker. He fabricated idols and sold them. That was his business. And he left Abraham to watch the shop one night. Now, Abraham had received a revelation that idolatry was bad, and so he took a hammer and he smashed every single statue in the idol shop except for one. And he leaned the hammer up against that idol. When Terach came into the shop in the morning, he said, "Abraham, what did you do?" Abraham said, "I didn't do anything. That idol there got into an argument with the other ones and picked up the hammer and smashed them all to pieces." Terach said, "What are you talking about? That idol can't do anything. I carved it myself with my own hands the other day." Abraham says, "Aha, you just said it. It doesn't do anything. You made it yourself." You see, the sin of idolatry, according to Rabbinic Judaism anyways, is taking something made by people and treating it as a god, untouchable, calling it holy because of what you feel about it or what you imagine to be true. So maybe idolatry is taking things made by people and treating them as untouchable, unquestionable, perfect. It could be a nation state, could be a political ideology. Everything should be amenable to debate, to question, to argument, to support, or to rejection, if it's made by human hands. That would be a humanistic take on idolatry. But would we call it holy? What does it mean to call something holy? What is holiness? Is it a supernatural state? Is it something that's inherent in a person who comes from a particular pedigree, like the priestly line? Is it something that you can create a magic formula to make something holy automatically? Or is holiness a human concept applied to the world, like beauty or inspiration? We find music beautiful. We find the candle flames mesmerizing. But that's our perspective. Is there a metric scale you can apply to beauty? If we think that all religion was made by people, or to use the line from The Wizard of Oz, we see the man behind the curtain, then there may be many versions of the story that coexist, even within the same document, as we'll see. These events from the sacred past are stories, but not history. They didn't actually happen in this way. The values represented in these stories were written by people, and so they are a product of their time. Sometimes they are timeless, and sometimes they are of the past and should be treated that way. And most importantly, if people wrote these stories, if people created religion, holiness, even the concept of idolatry, then we were allowed to agree or disagree, and even to change our minds if we see the implications of how this idea is used in our own day. And so we're going to turn to Exodus chapter 30, which is the beginning of this Torah portion. It's called Ki Tisa. As I've mentioned before, the Torah portion takes the name of the first couple words in the Torah portion. Now, in this case, the first words of the Torah portion are, Vayidaber Yahweh el Moshe lemor. And God spoke to Moses, saying, well, there's a lot of those in the Torah, because God speaks to Moses a lot. So it doesn't start with that. It starts with, Ki tisa et rosh b'nei Yisrael, when you are counting the heads of the Israelites. Now, that's the name behind the Torah portion. When you're counting, not particularly inspirational, and actually not that relevant to the content of the story. But notice what happens when you're making a census. You count everybody, and every person has to pay a levy, a tax. But in this case, it's not a tax, it's a kaper, it's an atonement. You're paying off your guilt so that no plague will arise on you. So it's not even a voluntary donation. This is a tax levied on pain of plague from the god. When you count them, you enter everyone in the records. They pay a half shekel by the sanctuary weight. So here you've got the metrics there. Everyone from age 20 and up has to give an offering. The rich do not pay more, the poor do not pay less. They have to pay their half a shekel as atonement for every person. So the assumption is they're guilty and they have to buy off God. It's really protection money, right? Give your shekel or else. Or as George Carlin said, God needs money. Or maybe the priests who wrote the story wanted money. So now God speaks to Moses again, and he describes a laver for washing, something to be used to purify the people coming into the tent of meeting, where those holy figures can come to meet God. You put water in it, let Aaron and his sons, that's that holy caste, wash their hands and feet. When they enter the tent of meeting, they wash with the water so they don't die. Or if they approach the altar to serve, to turn a smoke into an offering by fire, they wash their hands and feet so they don't die. They have to be pure. If you're going to encounter the holy, you better not have any schmutz on your hands or feet or soul. God goes on to speak to Moses. Take choice spices, myrrh and cinnamon and aromatic cane, cassia and olive oil. Make of this a sacred anointing oil. This is the recipe for holiness. Here's how you make the magic oil that sanctifies the priests. And with it you anoint the tent of the meeting, the ark of the covenant, the table, its utensils, the lampstand, its fittings, the altar of incense, the altar of burnt offering and all its tools, and the laver itself, even the basin to wash. You have to purify that. You have to make the basin holy before you can use it to purify yourself. And therefore you are consecrating them, so they will be most holy. Notice how many times the word kadash appears in this verse. V'kidashta otam, you will make them holy. V'hayu kodesh, kodashim, they'll be holy of holies. Kol hanogea bahem yikdash, anyone who touches them will be holy. So holiness here is seen as not just a mental category, but as a real state of reality, that if you touch the things anointed by the magic oil, you yourself will be pure. And so too do you anoint Aaron and his sons, consecrate them to me to serve as priests. And this is the recipe for the anointing oil through the ages. Do not put it on anyone's body. It is sacred, to be held sacred by you. So it's special just to the priests. And again, another recipe to beat into powder and put before the tent of meeting. And I'm not interested in cooking, so we're going to move on to chapter 31. And now it's time to build this tabernacle. Moses is told to single out Bezalel, the son of Uri, son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah. He has a divine spirit of skill, ability, and knowledge in all kinds of crafts, to make designs for work in gold and silver and copper, to cut stones for setting, and to carve wood, any kind of artistic craft. By the way, the modern Institute for Art Education in Israel is called Bezalel. They named it after this character in the Hebrew Bible because he was gifted in art, not because they trained people how to build an ark for the table of the Ten Commandments. It's for the art side of it. And so he also has an assistant who is given skills, and so they are the ones who are designated to build all of these holy items. Now, you might have remembered from the Ten Commandments that the Israelites aren't supposed to worship idols, right? They're not supposed to worship things. But look at all these holy things they have to build and consecrate with the special oil. The tent of meeting, the ark for the pact and the cover upon it, the furnishings of the tent, the table and its utensils, the pure lampstand and all its fitting, the altar of incense, the altar of burnt offerings, the laver and its stand, the service vestments, the sacral vestments of Aaron the priest and of his sons, as well as the anointing oil and the aromatic incense for the sanctuary. This is a lot. This is a lot of stuff you've got to keep pure and that have a kind of holiness to themselves. And so, if you're treating them as holy, are you indeed worshiping things and not the God as the ultimate truth? So then Yahweh says to Moses, "Speak to the Israelite people and say, 'Nevertheless, keep my Sabbaths as a sign between me and you throughout the ages.'" So the sign is not just a physical object, it's also the space and time that you're celebrating. You keep the Sabbath, it is holy to you. So you see, holy has a sense of a supernaturalism, but also set aside. The Shabbat is unique to this people. One who profanes it will be put to death. Whoever does work on it, that person is cut off from their kin. 6 days you work, the seventh day you have a Shabbat Shabbaton, a total stopping. Whoever does work on the Sabbath day, mot yumat, will surely die. Not just shunning, but death. The Israelite people will keep the Sabbath, observe it throughout age as a covenant for all time. This is a song, by the way, that some of you may have heard. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-shabbat, lasot et ha-shabbat ledorotam, brit olam. An eternal covenant is the Shabbat. It will be a sign for all times between me and the people of Israel. So you see, this is also holiness, holiness in time, not just in objects. And it recalls the creation story we read about in Genesis. And on finishing with him on Mount Sinai, God gave Moses the 2 tablets, the Shnei Luchot HaEdah, the tablets of the witnessing, of the pact, the covenant. These Luchot Even, these tablets of stone. Ketuvim be'etzba Elohim, written by the finger of God. So God has a finger and has a handwriting, right? Now, what's happening back down at the bottom of the mountain? Because he's up receiving these words. When the people saw that Moses was so long in coming down from the mountain, the people gathered against Aaron and said to him, "Come, make us a god who will go before us. For that fellow Moses, the man who brought us from the land of Egypt, we don't know what has happened to him. So make us a god." Actually, in the Hebrew it says, "Aseh lanu Elohim." So it could be, make us gods. Make us a divine power. Give us something to worship. That pillar of fire, that pillar of cloud, it's gone. We don't know what's going on. Moses is gone. All those wonders he did, who knows? We're on our own. Now, rabbinic commentators have tried to rescue Aaron's reputation. They claim he didn't want to do this. He knew it was bad. But if you read the story, just the words of the story, it doesn't sound like it to me. What is Aaron's response to make us a god? "Take off the gold rings on the ears of your wives, your sons, and your daughters, and bring them to me. I need gold to make something." Now, the theory is, this is the rabbinic commentary, the rabbinic story on the story. If all the husbands in our congregation went to all of their wives and children and said, "Give me all your jewelry," the response might be, "No." And so the theory is that by asking for this, he was making an impossible ask, and the thought was that maybe they won't give it. And actually, according to another midrash, the women didn't give it. But the men took the gold of their own and used that. Well, that's again trying to save reputations. But in this story, Aaron said, "Give me the gold on all of your people." And all the people took off the gold rings in their ears and brought them to Aaron. There's no drama here. There's no tension. They're happy to do it. They don't see a problem in making something to worship because they just asked for it. They said, "Make us a god." He said, "Give me your gold." They said, "Okay." Then he took from them and he cast it in a mold and made it into a molten calf. And they exclaimed, "This is your God, O Israel, who brought you out of the land of Egypt." Remember, God is a jealous God, right? This is not going to go over pretty well. When Aaron saw this, he built an altar before it. And Aaron announced, "Tomorrow is a festival of Yahweh." What? But I thought Yahweh is the God on the mountain with the... Well, maybe he's calling the calf the God. That the calf is not really the God. The calf is a symbol of the God that brought them out of Egypt. But the people need something tangible, something concrete. So they wanted a calf. He made them a calf. Early the next day, the people got up and offered burnt offerings and brought sacrifices of well-being. They sat down to eat and to drink, and then they got up. Here it says they rose to dance. In the Hebrew, it actually says, V'yakumu l'tzachek. They got up to play, to laugh, to rejoice, to be merry, whatever that means. Yahweh spoke to Moses, "Hurry down, for your people whom you brought out of the land of Egypt have acted basely." Remember, God's a character here. And Moses is a character here. Now, what this sounds like to me, most of anything, is two parents when the kids have misbehaved. Do you know what your son has done? Look what it says. Hurry down, for your people whom you brought out of Egypt. That's God saying it. He's giving Moses the credit, as if it was Moses' idea to do all these things. Your people whom you brought out of the land of Egypt have acted basely. They've been quick to turn aside from the way I commanded upon them. They've made themselves a molten calf and bowed low to it and sacrificed to it, saying, "This is your God, Israel, who brought you out of the land of Egypt." The audacity, the ingratitude, to go back to Shakespeare, sharper than a serpent's tooth, to have an ungrateful children of Israel. Yahweh said further to Moses, "I see that this is a stiff-necked people. They're a pain in the neck. Now, let me be, that my anger will blaze forth against them, and I may destroy them, and make of you a great nation." We've seen God's anger before in this saga. Remember Noah and the world being destroyed and Noah becoming the new Adam? Well, here we have Moses to be the new Abraham. These people are irredeemable. Henny Youngman would have said, not only are they a pain in the neck, some people have a lower opinion of them. They are to be destroyed. And God is almost saying to Moses, "Give me permission. Let me be. Let my anger go out and destroy them. And I'll start over. You'll be the new Noah, the new Abraham. Start from scratch." Now, there's a wonderful midrashic story based on this verse. What does it mean when God says, "Let me be"? Does God need Moses' permission to go and do whatever he wants to do? Can Moses stop him, like stand in front of him and say, "No"? Hold him by the back of his coat? It's not going to do anything. What God is doing here, according to this interpretation, is asking Moses to stop him. He's saying, "Let me alone to do them," which gives Moses permission to do something. Moses says to himself, if I don't do something, this is going to be a disaster. He says a wonderful phrase, "Zitalui bi," it hangs on me, it depends on me to speak up and say something. You know, if I were a courtier in a king's court, and the king started abusing one of his servants to the point of death, I would have to speak up, even if it's the king, because otherwise something terrible will happen. It depends on me. And so Moses speaks up. He implored his God, Yahweh. He said, now this is Moses the genius, Moses the therapist, finding a way to stop God. Moses implored his God, saying, "Let not your anger, Yahweh, blaze forth against your people, whom you delivered from the land of Egypt with great power and a mighty hand." So what strategies is he deploying here? Flattery. Reminding him, your people whom you brought up, right? It's not the you, back and forth the parents are having. He's reminding God, these are the people that you saved yourself. You delivered them out of Egypt with your great power. Again, some flattery never hurts. Let not the Egyptians say, it was with evil intent that he delivered them, only to kill them off in the mountains and annihilate them from the face of the earth. What would the neighbors say? What will the world say? What will the Egyptians say if you just took them out here and then wiped them out anyways? What will they think of you? So now you're playing on reputation and ego. Turn from your blazing anger and renounce the plan to punish your people. Let's redirect. Let's try something else. Take a deep breath. And remember your servants, Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, how you swore to them by your own self and said to them, I will make your offspring as numerous as the stars of heaven, and I will give to your offspring this whole land of which I spoke to possess forever. Another strategy. Well, you said, you promised their ancestors, and you loved their grandparents and their great-grandparents. You thought they were wonderful. You gave them this wonderful promise. Are you going to really break your own word that you swore by your own name? You made a holy covenant with this people, and I'm sorry, but a covenant's a covenant. A contract's a contract. You said you were going to give it to them. Why are you reneging on your own word? And even if you don't like these people, you loved their ancestors. So drawing on memories, emotional attachment, and prior commitments. And Yahweh renounced the punishment planned for God's people. The therapy works. Thereupon Moses went down from the mountain, bearing the 2 tablets of the covenant, tablets inscribed on both of their surfaces. They were inscribed on one side and on the other, so front and back. Although the rabbis imagined, what if they were inscribed all the way through? Because, of course, it's a divine finger writing here. Maybe it goes all the way through, and then if you have a letter with a dot in the middle, maybe it was a miracle that the dot just sort of floated in the air. They're imagining all kinds of scenarios here. Because after all, divine handwriting is really impressive. The tablets were God's work, and the writing was God's writing, incised upon the tablets, charut alu luchot, carved on these tablets. When Joshua heard the sound of the people in the camp with its boisterous, he said to Moses, Kol milchama, there's a voice of war in the camp. But Moses answered, it is not the sound of the tune of triumph or the sound of the tune of defeat. It's the sound of song that I hear. It could lead to dancing. As soon as Moses came near the camp and saw the calf and the dancing, see the dancing, it's always the dancing, he became enraged. And he hurled the tablets written with God's hand that had been touched by the God, these holy tablets, he hurled them from his hands and shattered them at the foot of the mountain. He took the calf that they had made and he burned it. He ground it to powder and strewed it upon the water and made the Israelites drink it. You're going to sin like this? You're going to drink it. It's going to be a pain that you are going to carry with you your entire life. You're going to have, this is like rubbing it, when a dog misbehaves, you rub the nose in it. This is what's happening here. And Moses said to Aaron, what did this people do to you that you've brought such great sin upon them? Good question. I mean, Aaron, I left you in charge. And look what happened. The world's worst babysitter, right? All of a sudden, they are out of control. And they've done this terrible thing. So they must have done something to you. Did they, cut off a finger? Did they take your family hostage? What did they do to you to get you to do this? Aaron said, let not my Lord be enraged. You know that this people is bent on evil. It's their fault. They said to me, make us a god to lead us, for that fellow Moses, we don't know what happened to him. So I said to them, whoever has gold, take it off. They gave it to me, and I threw it into the fire, and out came this calf. He made a molded calf, like there was a mold. It doesn't just come out of the fire like that. And if it did, it'd be a miracle, right? So amazing. But I love the like running away from responsibility here, right? Aaron's saying, I threw it in the fire, and it came out a calf. What am I supposed to do? Moses saw the people were out of control. Since Aaron had let them get out of control, that's the narrator, by the way. It's not just Moses. Even the narrator is saying it was Aaron's fault. Terrible babysitter. So they were a menace to any who might oppose them. Now you might ask the question, if priests who claim descent from Aaron are the editors of this story, why would they leave this story in? Because Aaron looks terrible. Well, this might be the case that there were different houses of priests. There might have been a Moses style of priest and a Aaronite style of priest, and this is definitely a Moses style of priest story against the Aaronites. Moses stood up in the gate of the camp and said, "Whoever is for Yahweh, come here." And all the men of the tribe of Levi came to him. He said, "Thus says Yahweh, the God of Israel, each of you put your sword on your thigh, go back and forth from gate to gate throughout, and slay sibling, neighbor, and kin." Civil war. The men of Levi did as Moses had bidden. Some 3,000 people fell that day. Now, the numbers are exaggerated, but it's still clearly slaughter. And Moses said, "Dedicate yourselves to Yahweh this day, for each of you has fought against a blood relation, so that Yahweh bestows a blessing upon you. To whom are you loyal, your blood relation or to the God? You're loyal to the God." Now, this is where we, the humanists, might step back and say, is this a kind of idolatry? Is this taking something that humans have made and making it something beyond, above, commanding, dehumanizing? Because this God that you've projected into the universe has caused you to kill your kin. So maybe the God itself is idolatrous in that humanist setting. The next day Moses said to the people, "You've been guilty of a great sin. Yet now I will go up to Yahweh. Maybe I can win forgiveness for your sin." Moses went back to Yahweh. So did he leave Aaron in charge again? We don't know. "Alas, this people is guilty of a great sin in making themselves a god of gold. Now, if you will forgive them their sin, well and good. But if not, erase me from the record that you have written." Again, Moses playing the emotional card. What does he say? "Forgive them their sin, or else I quit. And wipe me out." He's literally putting himself in front of the people. If you won't forgive them, if you're going to kill them, don't save me. I'm with them. So what choice does Moses have? What choice does God have at that point? God said to Moses, "Only one who has sinned against me will I erase from my record. Go now, lead the people where I told you. See, my messenger will go before me. But when I make an accounting, I will bring them to account for their sins." They're not getting away with it. The ones who sinned will suffer, but only the ones who sinned. And then Yahweh sent a plague upon the people, for they did with the calf that Aaron, for what they did with the calf that Aaron had made. Remember how this Torah portion started? They were paying protection money, right? The shekel to avoid what? To avoid the plague. But you can't buy your way out of the sin of the golden calf. But now Moses has a problem. They've made this ark to carry 10 commandments, but what happened to the 10 commandments? Smash. Well, we need to get a new set of 10 commandments. God says to Moses, "Set out from here, go to the land I promised you. I will drive out the peoples of the land in front of you, but I will not go in your midst, since you're a stiff-necked people. I can't stand to be near you, lest I destroy you on the way." And when the people heard this, they went into mourning. Yahweh said to Moses, "Say to the Israelite people," have you ever had a parent say, "I need you to talk to the kid because I can't talk to him"? "Say to the Israelite people, you are a stiff-necked people. If I were to go in your midst for one moment, I would destroy you. I can't even be around you anymore. Now then, leave off your finery, and I will consider what to do with you. I'll decide your punishment later." And so they stripped off their finery from then on. Now Moses would take the tent and pitch it outside the camp, at some distance from the camp. It was called the tent of meeting. Whenever Moses went out to the tent, all the people would rise and stand and gaze after Moses until he entered the tent. And when he entered the tent, a pillar of cloud would descend and stand at the entrance to the tent, while God spoke with Moses. So a magic sign. When they saw the pillar of cloud, they would rise and bow low. They don't get to see the God, but they see the cloud cover that shows them that God is there. And then what does it say about Moses? Vayidaber Yahweh el Moshe panim el panim. Yahweh would speak to Moses face to face, punim to punim, if you want the Yiddish, as one person speaks to another. And then he would return to the camp, and his attendant, Joshua, who was his deputy, would not stay out of the tent. So here it says, Moses speaks to God face to face. This is a Moses-friendly story. Moses said to Yahweh, "See, you say to me, lead this people forward, but you've not made known to me whom you'll send with me. You've said, I've singled you out by name and gained my favor, but if I've gained your favor, let me know your ways, so I can know you. Consider, too, this nation is your people. I want to know your plan. Don't just tell me one step at a time. Give me the big picture." Moses wants more authority. God says, "I will go in the lead and lighten your burden. Unless you go in the lead, do not make us leave this place." So he's trying to make sure, God, you're not going to drop us again, right? We're through the worst. "How shall it be known that your people have gained your favor unless you go with us, so that we are distinguished, your people, from every other person on the face of the earth?" Distinguished from every other people on the face of the earth. That's the idea of a chosen people, right? A people separate from all the others. Yahweh said to Moses, "I will do this thing you've asked. You have gained favor in my sight." And so now here's the big ask, and this is the last part we're going to look at in this Torah portion. Moses says to Yahweh, the God, "Let me behold your kavod, let me behold your presence, your honor, yourself." And God answered, "I will make all my goodness pass before you. I will proclaim before you the name of God. I'll say the magic word. And the grace that I grant, the compassion that I show, but you cannot see my face. Lo tuchal lirot et panah. You cannot see my face, for a human being may not see me and live." What did it say just a few verses ago? Moses went into the tent of meeting and he saw God face to face. But here it says, you cannot see, no human can see my... Again, different traditions, different stories coming together to create a sacred canon that unites different groups, but sometimes disagrees with itself. Yahweh said, "See, there's a place near me. Station yourself on the rock, and as my presence passes by, I will put you in a cleft of the rock and shield you with my hand as I pass by." Fortunately, we have a rock right here. So Moses is in the crevice. God will pass by, but cover Moses with the hand, so Moses won't see the face on the way by. "And then I will take my hand away, and you will see my back, but you cannot see my face." Moses has to carve 2 new stones. He has to make 2 new tablets. He makes 2 new tablets like the first, and God comes by and begins to declare things. But these commandments he gives, this new covenant he's writing, is very different from the first commandments. He says, "I will make a covenant so that you will see special wonders, but the Canaanites and the Hivites and all these other people will be driven out before you. Do not make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land, tear down their altars, smash their pillars. No treaties with the other people of the land, but do not worship any other god." Don't make that mistake again. "No covenant with the inhabitants of the land. Do not take wives from their women for your sons. Do not make any molten gods for yourselves." And then some more commandments that aren't part of the 10 Commandments. "Observe Chag HaMatzot, the Feast of Unleavened Bread, in the time of the spring. The first issue from the womb belongs to me as a sacrifice. 6 days you work, on the 7th day you rest, the Shabbat. Observe the Feast of Weeks," whatever that is, "and the Feast of Ingathering," whatever that is. 3 times a year your males appear before Yahweh. Now that's creative translation, because if you read the Hebrew without the vowels, it would say 3 times a year your males will appear before the face of Yahweh. In other words, they would see the face of Yahweh. But the voweling changes it to, they will be seen by the face of Yahweh, because, of course, you can't see Yahweh's face at this point in the story. I drive out the nations and enlarge your land. Do not offer the blood of my sacrifice without anything leavened. The choice first fruits of your soil. Do not boil a baby goat in its mother's milk, whatever that means. Those are the new commandments. And Yahweh says to Moses, write down these commandments. In accordance with these commandments, I make a covenant. Moses was there 40 days and 40 nights and wrote. And who wrote down the tablets? Well, it says he wrote down. It doesn't say whether it was Moses or God that wrote them down this time. So Moses came down from Mount Sinai with the 2 tablets of the pact. He was not aware the skin of his face was radiant. You see, because Moses himself has become holy because of his contact with God. And when he finished speaking, he put a veil over his face because they couldn't handle how radiant he was. Was he really radiant? Well, there may never have been a Moses. These are stories that people told in later generations to justify the ritual practices they performed, the authority of different houses of priests, the concept of a God that chooses a people, that justifies the expulsion of other people. And we, evaluating these stories, are allowed to say, here's a positive value. The fact that everybody has to contribute equally to the sanctuary. Although it's technically a regressive tax, so we might not like it so much. And yet here are other values of chosenness, of exclusion, of invasion and expulsion. We see the impact of those rules even today by those who claim the authority of this text. And we might say, thank goodness it was only written by people.